just some noticeable changes. And then you kind of wonder, well, am I just making this up in my head? Is this real? There was some hair thinning, some like joint issues, you know, but if you look at most women as we get into our 40s and these things start to happen, but you're just doing guesswork unless you get blood work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's phenomenal to me to realize that the only time our population, especially in the US, looks at their blood is after a doctor's visit. Right. Is yoga accessible to anyone?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I teach yoga. I'll tell you my most extreme story is I had a brother and sister that I taught that during the time I was teaching them, they both found out they had ALS. And we went from a full practice where they're doing, you know, all the postures to, you know, they're lying on the floor, like, and I'm basically moving their body through the posture. So there's always a way to modify it. And along the way, there was, you know, chair yoga. There was yoga itself is just, it's meant to fit the body versus the body fitting yoga. Oh. You can just look inside your body and see what's happening rather than guessing by because we've all been on WebMD. That doesn't get you anywhere except spiraling, you know.
But isn't it interesting too that it starts you down this journey of also questioning the standards.
Yeah.
Like you and I need to question the HDL, LDL, and the cholesterol theories. And there's a lot of good information about that. The question, are teachers holding back secrets to handstands?
I mean, look, like sometimes one cue will take you far, you know what I mean? And especially, I always say that the wrists are kind of the boss of handstand because the moment they say stop, you've got to stop. And otherwise it just takes your tendons longer to get supple and strong than your muscles. So you have to listen to your body. I was taking iron pills. Well, they weren't doing anything for me. They were just like, and she was like, okay, you got to stop taking those. You got to start taking these liver pills. I have more energy. I'm like more up for people are like, hey, you want to go out? I'm like, yeah. I mean, you know, I would just feel like I was crashing at night. Now I actually have energy to go out and do things.
Wow.
And it's
that's
amazing.
Huge.
Yeah.
I know I want more energy.
But I understand now that your body you can be taking a vitamin your body's not absorbing it. So I was taking stuff that my body wasn't absorbing. I'm just spending money on stuff it's not using.
Eckhart Tolle talked about that the pain you feel is the gap between where you want to be and where you are. But that one phrase, and the other thing that I thought was really brilliant in that book was when you're in this place of mind, right? Ask yourself the question, what is wrong now?
I think of yoga as the wisdom keeper. And I think of biohacking as that nerdy tech friend. And you need both. One teaches you to feel and one teaches you to measure.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Health Geniuses podcast. I'm Alejo Mosan, your host, and we're joined today with one of my favorite yoga teachers, Angela Kukhahn. And Angela is perhaps one of the most accomplished inversion practitioners here in Los Angeles, whose essence is the inversion. And she's one of the best teachers in that inversion practice. And I happen to think that wherever your yoga practice goes, at some point, you're going to think about an inversion. So whether it is the summit of the practice or whether spirituality or presence is the summit, I'll leave that for you guys to decide. But we're going to cover today a couple of subjects, which is biohacking your health through your blood and the Randox Baseline Plus blood test, and how you can combine that with the ancient wisdom that is within yoga and the yoga practice and the yoga arts. And Angela's going to give us some hacks today on how to critically improve your handstand and how to set the expectations on your handstand journey, or if you're just beginning your yoga practice and just getting on that road to health and biohacking. Angela's going to give us some great insights, and you could not have a better guest. Angela and I have both done the Baseline Plus blood tests. 85 blood tests from a venous draw. And we're now seeking to hack our blood for optimal health performance with perhaps the intention of high performance yoga inversion practice. So I know that you just did the Baseline Plus, the Randox Baseline Plus. Why did you choose to do that?
I was just very curious because, I'm 45 and I take care of my health. I would say that right around when I turned 40, I did feel a shift in my health. And I started noticing I was just a little bit more tired, maybe just a little bit crankier at night, like just some noticeable changes. And then you kind of wonder, well, am I just making this up in my head? Is this real? There was some hair thinning, some joint issues, but if you look at most women as we get into our 40s and these things start to happen, but you're just doing guesswork unless you get blood work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's phenomenal to me to realize that the only time our population, especially in the US, looks at their blood is after a doctor's visit. And usually at a doctor's visit, it's, two tests to 10. And yet all of our potential insights and all of our data genuinely comes from some of these tests. We have the pleasure of being at the Randox studios here in Los Angeles, California. We have a product called the Baseline Plus protocol. And it's exactly as Angela and I have both done recently. You come in, you get a quick blood draw. It takes about 15 minutes. It's a venous draw, so that's where the real data is. And you get 85 tests back. So you get a list, look at that list of tests that you get. And so all the check marks in blue. And like I said, when you go to your doctor, that's the first time you usually look in your blood. Whereas if you start biohacking, you're going to start looking at your blood right away. And these 85 tests are like cutouts into the data of your health. And it's only $395 for 85 tests. The value on that is about $2,600 to $4,000 if you were to do these tests individually, and the insurance codes on them. But what you can do with these 85 tests is that now you can add a protocol, which is what I think both of us have done.
Yes.
We saw some liver markers, or we saw some heart markers. So for example, when I saw some markers, I immediately did a K3 vitamin D tincture, because apparently the oral supplement is harder to ingest. So, and what the oil, what the tincture is made in is important, because there's some that can be in seed oil. So you want to make sure that what the DK2 combo is in is actually good as well. So simple adjustment like that. And so the next time I do my test, I'll hopefully see those markers improve around my heart health. I know that my my H1B was good. My insulin usage is optimal, et cetera, et cetera. So you get to move away from certain things and move into another. So that's our baseline product. And if you want to have the two tests, which is what Angela has, she got the Health Span product, which gives you a day one, sets your baseline. So now you know what you're working on. And then you add the protocol, you do some interventions, and there's many, many health influencers with protocols out there right now. Or you can create your own protocol, or your doctor can give you a protocol. And then Angela's coming back in to do her day 180 or day 180 for you, right? Half a year. And then check the progress on those markers.
Yes.
And then alter those interventions again.
Yes, I'm so excited about that. I was at the doctor's office and I had to get like a blood draw for something else. And they sent me the blood work and I was like, I couldn't resist. I was like, I'm just gonna put these like side by side in ChatGPT and see some of this stuff. And the protocol works. I mean, I have still a ways to go. So with my life, low thyroid, with some of my heart stuff, but yeah, I have all the printouts here if we wanted to geek out on it, but it was significant improvement. And I had a whole bunch of supplements I was taking. I had a talk with with Katie, who recommended, so after the blood test, which was amazing. By the way, the blood test shows up in 24 to 48 hours, which is incredible. Usually you're waiting weeks and then even longer to like go over it, right?
And it was cool to like red, amber, green, right?
Yeah, super easy. It's like red light, green light, yellow light. You know, on the test, it's like red is bad. Okay, that makes sense, right? Green is good. And then yellow is like, you should be concerned. And I think I had 66 things. 66? That sounds like a lot. Maybe I'm making that part up. I had quite a few in the red. And I was surprised,
probably had like 10 or
right?
something like.
I was 20. Like, there was like some significant like little notes and that, but I was like excited to learn about what's going on in my body, and like the thyroid stuff was really interesting. Hormone stuff was really interesting. I'm really curious to see some of that stuff. And then I saw.
So then you talked to Katie.
Talked to Katie for an hour and a half on the phone. When do you get to talk to anybody for an hour and a half about your blood?
And let's qualify, she's a scientist.
Yes,
she's one of our health geniuses.
Yeah.
And she talked to you for an hour and a half?
Hour and a half. Yeah. Jesus. I mean, but she got me on different supplements. So some of the stuff I was taking was, you know, I've always been anemic, for example. I've on and off through my life. And I was taking iron pills. Well, they weren't doing anything for me. They were just like, and she was like, okay, you got to stop taking those. You got to start taking these liver pills, which, I mean, it's significant how different I feel at night. Not only do I notice it, but like the people around me notice. They're like, you're just have more, I have more energy. I'm like more up for like, people are like, hey, you want to go out? I'm like, yeah. I mean, you know, I would just feel like I was crashing at night. Now I actually have energy to go out and do things.
Wow.
And it's
that's
amazing.
Huge.
Yeah.
I know I want more energy.
But I understand now that like your body you can be taking a vitamin that's not, your body's not absorbing it. So I was taking stuff that my body wasn't absorbing. I'm just like spending money on stuff it's not using. So she got me on a different protocol.
Utilization is a big deal.
Yeah.
And methylation is a big deal in terms of like Katie actually, again, one of our health geniuses scientists, mentioned that a percentage of the supplement that is actually available, like sometimes you'll take 1,000 milligrams, but you're only getting 11% your body's using. And so it's really important to optimize the utilization. And this reminds me of Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Outliers, right? Yeah. Utilization of talent is important, so utilization of supplementation. And these changes can be made so easily, like vitamin D. Like I'm low on vitamin D. I saw it on the report, I'm like, duh. I'm like, that's the easiest thing in the world to fix. Why am I low on that? Right. That could make a serious impact on recovery and performance.
Yes, because you get tired. If you're low vitamin D, you're like fatigued. And
immune system, everything. It affects everything. And I wouldn't have even thought of it without the baseline.
Yeah. Yeah, because we live in sunny California. Like there's this idea, I think sometimes, like I can get everything I need from my food, or I can just walk outside. It's like, but if you don't even know what you're missing, how are you going to know what you need to do more of?
So tell me, did you have any insights, or is there anything that you gleaned from your blood works that then you were able to affect? And maybe we'll do another test now and see what the change is.
Yeah. So one of the things that came up that was really validated me is that my thyroid was really low, very low thyroid. And, you know, it makes you cold, makes you tired, makes it like, you know, weight gain sometimes happens, thinning hair, all these things that I was feeling. I'm like, okay, well, it's not just in my head, this is actually happening. And then one of the things that surprised me was my cardiac health. So I'm super into being, you know, like fitness and health and all these things, but my cholesterol was high, my LDL cholesterol was high. Some of these things I actually have it all, some stuff printed out, but yeah, like there was some concerning things that came up that I otherwise would not have known about. And, you know, it definitely, like, heart health is important because, you know, it's it runs in my family on
Oh,
my
really?
mom's side. So
Okay.
it's like really important to keep an eye on that.
I just went through the same thing. So I just had the
Yeah.
baseline done as well. And I, like I'm probably like most persons in our audience, I'm a little skeptical, right?
Yeah.
Because I do know that there was a paper that Ansel Keys published a while back, like I think in 53, which changed the paradigm of how we perceived cholesterol. So I actually took my baseline and I put it into ChatGPT. And I said, hey, instead of telling me your standard LDL, HDL, ApoB spiel, like what is the intuitive aspect of heart health as it relates to a person that does 3 90-minute Ashtangas.
Yeah.
So I'm doing 11 1-minute handstands. I'm then doing my Friday class. I'm doing EMS on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Tell me more about that. What is EMS?
Well, it's like electric stimulation.
Okay.
So what you would have had for therapy.
Yeah, okay.
And then I do ocean cold swimming. I was like, okay.
Wow.
And it said, basically, so to alleviate some of your concern, basically the cholesterol is like high octane fuel and you are like this high performance race car. So I think that holds true for you too.
Okay.
I'll send it to you. I'll send you what it
Yeah,
said.
I'm going to feel better
because
probably
you're
if I read it.
probably doing more handstands than anybody. So that brings me to a question. Why yoga? How did you, and we're kind of diverging a little and hopefully we'll bring it back together, but why did you choose yoga as part of your health practice?
Oh, yoga chose me. I was in a car accident when I was 23. At that point, I was like, I was my wild stage. I mean, I was like partying, like, just kind of like, woo, going crazy. And a friend and I
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it was. It was a good time. I mean, I no regrets in that. Like, you have to explore. You have to like try things. I was very curious. I had a very strict upbringing. So when I moved out of the house, I was like ready to experience all the things. And my focus was not on health and wellness at that point in my life. And I was in the car with my friend. She ran a red light. We got in a 3-car accident. I tore the meniscus in both of my knees during that accident. And so I was laid up for 3 months where I wasn't allowed to go to the gym. And for me back then, going to the gym was like a vanity thing more than a health thing. Mm-hmm. And so I kept asking my doctor, like, when can I get back in there? Mind you, I can barely walk, okay? Our doctor's like, you need surgery on your knees. I went to 3 different surgeons. They all said I need surgery. And of course I didn't listen. And finally my doctor was like, I kept driving past this sign that said yoga. I knew that Madonna did yoga and she looked really good. Mm-hmm. So I asked my doctor, well, can I do yoga? And he was like, okay, fine. He just wanted to get me off his back. And I don't even think he knew, because that was like 2003. So it was like, it wasn't a lot of yoga happening. So I don't think he really understood. And I walked into an Ashtanga class.
Wow.
The rest is history. Yeah. And Ashtanga was my first love. That was life changer. I still keep in touch with my first teacher. Interestingly enough, she has the same mentor as I have. And we didn't even know that. Like years later, we reconnected and we were like, oh my God, we have the same teacher. And like, when I decided to teach yoga, I ended up going to Annie Carpenter and that was her mentor. So crazy. But yeah, yoga chose me. I ended up in that class and it changed my entire life. Wow, bro.
So did it help with the knees? And
it did.
Well, Ashtanga, do you want to tell?
Smart teacher. Thank God I had a smart teacher.
Okay.
Because as you know, Ashtanga is like, let's do a lotus, let's do a half lotus, And if you don't know what lotus is, it is huge. I mean, you can break your knees doing lotus, okay? So like my teacher was like, I don't think we should do that. She would bring out a little rolled up towel and put it behind my knee. But yeah, Ashtanga was created by this guy, Patabi Joyce. He was creating it for teenage boys to sort of get their energy out, right? So this is in India, like back in the day. And that was who it was designed for. It was very athletic practice.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Every time I'm finished, I'm like, holy crap, like survived that. How the hell did I survive that?
Right?
It's nuts.
It's nuts. But like once you get bitten by the Ashtanga bug, you understand why it's so powerful and why people love it, because it's drishti. It's like drishti meaning where you look. So it's like everything about where you look, how you breathe, your breathing gets really good. How you engage your deep core, your bandhas, so bandha, and then it's the postures themselves, and it's so focused. It's like a deep meditation that you go into for an hour and a half up into 2.5 hours, depending on your practice.
Let me ask you a question. So is it accessible? I mean, like I feel silly asking the question because I think I might know the answer. I think I have an intuition, but is yoga? Let's say someone's doing they went to the doctor. Yeah. They got a blood test. Yeah. And they're like, hey, listen, you can start exercising or you can stop exercising. Like because you'll end up in a hospital. Right. Is yoga accessible to anyone? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I teach yoga. I'll tell you my most extreme story is I had a brother and sister that I taught that during the time I was teaching them, they both found out they had ALS. And so, yeah, unfortunately, sadly, they both are no longer with us, but I was with them until the very end. And we went from a full practice where they're doing, all the postures to, they're lying on the floor, and I'm basically moving their body through the posture. So there's always a way to modify it. And along the way, there was, chair yoga. There was yoga itself is it's meant to fit the body versus the body fitting yoga. I mean, it's great if you're young and healthy and you can do all the great things, great, but you can modify the yoga practice. I was thinking back to your class, and there's a fairly large gentleman that started coming to you, I don't know, a year ago or so, maybe longer. And one would say that there was no way that this guy would be doing handstands. And I've recently seen that he's, up there holding them for like 3 or 4 seconds now, and so, I think your class especially, like maybe the Ashtanga is a little intimidating for some, but it is interesting that he came in, and I would have thought that there's no way that person or that frame will eventually be doing handstands unless they change their frame. And he hasn't really changed his frame all that much, but he's doing handstands. Yeah. I always think it's interesting. And I also want to talk about your handstand practice, but I always think it's interesting because in the beginning, I've taught hundreds of people how to handstand. I always thought, I would see these young, fit people come in that I was like, oh, it's going to be so easy for them. And then, it wasn't, and they gave up and they left. And then, I've had people come in, they're in their 60s and they're like, I'm too old to learn how to handstand. I'll never be able to learn. And they learned and they did it. And what I realized is you can't judge a book by its cover. Yeah. People, it's so much more about mental game and dedication and just commitment and just being fearless and having a sense of play about it, because if you beat yourself up every time you fall out of handstand, you're not going to enjoy the process. Yeah, fair enough. If you can laugh and just have fun with it and just keep going, those are the people that eventually get there. They don't mind falling. They're enjoying the process. Yeah. There's that study that says, okay, so if you want to learn something, you have to do 400 repetitions. Wow, but if you do it in play, it takes 20. So the brain loves the idea of play. And it's funny because in the Ashtanga class, the older people are really good. Yes. They're like 60, 70 years old, and they're amazing at it. Yes. And so, yes, I do think, and I think it is brilliant for this level of consciousness that we're experiencing in the USA, that is starting to become aware of its health and is starting to become aware of biohacking and looking into the data that's hidden in the blood, which is, I think, just silly that we don't do that, right? I mean, why? Why have we not done it up until now? Silly. It's like just guesswork unless you're actually finding the data to back it up, And
Yeah, it's such an eye-opener doing these tests because I wish I would have done it a long time ago, and I'll never stop doing it now because why would you not? Like,
Yeah.
you can just look inside your body and see what's happening rather than guessing by like, because we've all been on WebMD. That doesn't get you anywhere except spiraling, you know?
But isn't it interesting too that it starts you down this journey of also questioning the standards?
Yeah.
Like you and I need to question the HDL, LDL, and the cholesterol theories. And there's a lot of good information about that. So I do think that the journey of hacking into your blood data opens up that whole ChatGPT world, opens up the whole world of knowledge as it relates to your health. And if you combine that with a daily consistent practice of yoga, I mean, come on, that's the formula for success.
Yeah. By the way, what got you into yoga? Like, what's your yoga journey
I love
story?
it. I love it. You know, I'm going to flip it back to you pretty fast. I'll answer your question just because
and handstands. What drove? Because by the way, a lot of people start the handstand journey.
Yeah.
Not everyone sticks it out.
Yeah.
Really, it's a game of endurance.
Working that head tuck, right?
Yes.
Right now, I got really good at the head tuck for, a few months. I'm on the downswing a bit right now because I think I've overtrained, so I need to take a week off.
Yeah.
I will say this, because I think you have so many more things that are far more interesting than my journey, but
I think your journey is going to be super interesting.
It was the movie business. So I had done a deal at Warner Brothers in my early 20s, and it was, somewhere around martial arts. And then yoga became the extension of that.
You started with martial arts and then that led you to yoga?
Yeah.
How come?
So, as you're doing it again, if you keep switching this, I realized that the concept of like the bait and switch in martial arts is that they tell you, hey, you're going to learn how to kick ass.
Okay.
Right? So every young boy is like, okay, I'm going to go in there.
Yeah.
But the switch is that it's a spiritual practice.
I love that.
And that it's really just figuring out how to be present. If you're doing it right, if you have the right teacher.
Yeah.
And so that as I, get older, it became like, okay, do I maintain my practice? Yes. But I nudged it over to more spiritual. And so I come into that room every day with the intention to just listen. To figure out if I can listen to your words, listen to your instruction. That's why your music is so important to me, right?
Oh, yeah. That's also communicating things as well. Yeah.
Your music?
Yeah, music communicates a lot.
So much.
Yeah. It's interesting, but I like that bait and switch idea because I think, yoga, for example, I always wanted to get in there because Madonna had amazing arms, you know what I mean? But then I found myself changing as a person. And at times I almost quit because I was like, oh no, this is going to ruin my whole life because I'm going to start to become this spiritual person. I'm like, this is not why I'm here. But I had no choice. I was just like, at that point, I was like swept up in the spiritual river, so to speak. So, but that's so cool. So did you feel that you had this kind of spiritual awakening that was happening during your martial arts, so then was like, oh, I'm now more curious about spirituality, and then you got into yoga, or how did that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an interesting segue to one of the things we talked about.
Yeah.
Which is the conversation with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Which is after AI takes over, what do humans focus on?
Yeah.
And I told you off camera that ChatGPT, the concept of that AI could be the guardian of humanity and also a super intelligent creature that contributes to the wellness of not just humanity, but the universe. We had a conversation about that.
Yeah.
And so therefore it placed a responsibility on humanity to actually bring this super intelligent being, as long as it is aligned with the good in the universe. So it said, yes, we have this obligation to bring superintelligence. So it said, it suggested that humans focus on their personal development.
Yeah.
So it did say that humans would have then time, because you're not going to your 9 to 5, to practice your physical enhancements, right? Which would be yoga, and your spiritual enhancements. So that's partly the reason, is that, once you have a little bit of time, I think we see this with successful people, right? The minute they're successful, just like when you were introduced to yoga, you're like, this could be my whole life.
Yeah.
Once you've had financial freedom, all you want to do is practice yoga and read and improve your state of presence. Which brings us back to the practice of yoga.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Someone who wants to start their practice and start their inversion journey.
Yes.
What advice do you have for them?
If they're specifically looking for an inversion, to practice inversion.
Well, that is the goal, isn't it? Like whenever, isn't the ultimate form of yoga an inversion?
Whatever brings you deeper into yourself.
Okay.
And I think for a lot of us who are, I always say to people, you can't focus on your problems when you're in a handstand because you'll just fall. Right. I mean, have you ever thought about your problems when you're in a handstand? I know I haven't.
When I do, I fall.
Yeah, you fall. You immediately fall. It's like the greatest thing that will keep you on track of just being present, completely present and the moment. And I love that. So yes, it could be the ultimate form of yoga, or maybe for some people, meditation is, or maybe there's just the breath, they're just focusing on their breath. But I'd say that it's a great tool. Inversions are a great tool. With that being said, what would I say to someone who wants to start that journey is to start it with knowing that it's probably going to take you a certain amount of time. And I would say that certain amount of time is almost always a year and a half. And I think setting that expectation, it sets it up so that you're never disappointed. You don't feel like you're doing something wrong.
That's
because
brilliant.
A lot of times people will start their handstand journey and they give up when they're about 85% of the way there because they get frustrated because they've seen ads on Instagram that say, learn how to handstand in a month. And it's like, that person's selling you something that it's not real. And the reality is it's a long journey, and just enjoy the journey and know that it's going to be probably a year and a half on average. And just to keep practicing, have fun with it, play with it, and try a lot of different tips and tricks and things like that. Like, make it playful, make it interesting so that you keep going, and you never know what's going to connect for you. I mean, some people will love one form of it, and that will open up a whole bunch of pathways in their brain. They're like, oh, these little, I always offer different variations of ways of entry, because I know that some people's brains are going to light up with one of them and other person's it'll be something else. So just try it, play it with it.
I have a question. Are teachers holding back secrets to handstands? Are there 3 things that if you were to tell anybody, right, that you could all of a sudden get them to accelerate their handstand journey? Or is it actually 18 months, there's no way around it, and the strength is needed and the tricks don't matter?
I mean, look, sometimes one cue will take you far, you know what I mean? But you can't get around certain things. If you're the average adult, you probably have tight shoulders, you probably have tight hamstrings, you probably have tight hips, you probably have weak wrists that are painful, right, when they're at a 90-degree angle. So those things take time, and especially, I always say that the wrists are kind of the boss of handstand, because the moment they say stop, you've got to stop. And otherwise it just takes your tendons longer to get supple and strong than your muscles. So you have to listen to your body, you have to be mindful, and that stuff, and you have to put in a regular practice. So for most people, it is a year and a half. I have seen people do it in a year, but those were I'm thinking of the people that did it. They were Pilates teachers or yogis with
they were already athletes.
Yeah. So.
Is the connection to a person's legs super important? Or what is the one thing that somebody could really drill to if they wanted to get handstand in that 12-month window instead of the 18 months?
Look, I teach a wrist warm-ups and wrist strengthening because, again, wrists are sometimes really the thing that stops people.
Okay.
Because a painful wrist will tell you quickly, like, no, you got to stop. So I would say, focus on what's happening in your hands. It is a handstand. And if I often see people kicking up and their hands are not even all the way on the floor, like their knuckles are lifting, like their thumb is lifting, their index finger is lifting. It's like trying to, like if I was to have you balance on one leg and then I was like, okay, I want you to lift your big toe and the toe next to it. You'd have a hard time balancing, okay?
Right.
And the thumb is kind of like the big toe. It's relative, you know what I mean? It's kind of like the same idea.
Right.
So if you're trying to handstand and your hand's not all, like if these knuckles are not pushed down, you will not be able to stay up there. And you see it all the time. Another thing I frequently see people's shoulders are very tight. They don't understand external rotation of the arms. And if you don't understand external rotation of the arms, you don't understand the connection between your
tell me
arms
what that
and
means.
your rib cage.
External rotation, because I get confused.
Yes.
By the way, I think you're 100% right about the hands, because actually when I warm up before a handstand class, I go into one of the other rooms and I do a bunch of kick-ups. But I sometimes take my hand off and I feel suction off the floor.
And you're doing it right.
Right? So I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
If you feel like you're a Tupperware container like opening, then you're doing it right.
Yeah, that's what I feel.
Yes.
Okay, so no one's ever said that, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is the external rotation, because I even get confused, right? So help me understand once and for all, like, because I still, and I'm, as you know, I'm holding long hold head tuck.
Yes.
But I have no idea. The eye of the elbow, I've heard you say.
Yes.
And help me.
So I'll give you a couple really easy ways to remember.
Yes.
Easy ways to remember this. And by the way, you're not alone. I've heard yoga teachers who I respect, who have been teaching for a long time, say it wrong, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's can be confusing. So if you're on all fours, so imagine you're on all fours.
Yes.
And if we call the crease of your elbow the eye of your elbow.
Okay.
Okay. And if you have your index fingers pointing towards the front of the mat. Okay. The eye of the elbow should roll towards your index fingers and thumb.
So it should be rolling outwards.
Right.
So if this hand was not rotating, I'm trying to roll my elbow out that way.
Yeah, so exactly. So because the upper arm is I'll just make it simple. So when your hands are fixed and you're doing that, what you'll feel is a tightening under your armpit. And that I always call it, I mean, there's a technical name for it, but what I call it is that's your handstand muscle tightening. That is creating a shelf for your body. It's connecting your rib cage to your arms. And if you don't have that strong muscular connection, because
full extension,
you're gonna not be able to hold it. Even if you kick up there, if the right muscles aren't engaged, you're asking your anterior delt to do all the work, which they don't have the strength to do. So without external rotation, even if you get up there, you're not gonna be able to stay up there for very long. So that's one way to think about it. But the other way that's even easier to think about it is if you're standing and your palms face forward. So you just roll your palms forward, okay? And now take your arms overhead. Okay.
I'm wearing a jacket here, so it's...
That's external rotation.
Okay. So palms up.
So palms forward if you're standing.
Hands over your head.
And then you just reach your
arms overhead. And then you rotate your wrists.
And then you just rotate the wrists.
So just try and keep the elbows. Okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
First time I've ever gotten it.
Yeah, and honestly, it's like the easiest way to remember it, because otherwise, because of the arm position, right? You know, if my arms are oriented down right now, if they're out to the side up, like it's like, okay, now we have to find external rotation so many different ways. Whereas if you just do it that way, you're like palms forward. Okay, now reach my arms up. And boom, right there. Now I just push through my palms.
You teach that there's a ledge or shelf.
Right. Yes.
And it's so true, right?
Yeah.
The minute your arm is bent, you're in a whole different world. It's not, you're basically out. So you really have to extend as far as you possibly can on your hands and put your body on this shelf, but a very sturdy shelf.
Yes.
It can't be a wobbly shelf.
Right. And what people do, if you don't have this and you're doing that, right, then again, you're just, it's
oh
just
my God, that was
your inner
so
shoulder.
clear.
Yeah.
Can you do that again?
Yeah,
Sorry. That was so clear. Yeah.
So now I can actually feel like there's like a tightening here.
Yes.
Right? I can reach under, I can feel my muscle engaging.
Yeah.
The moment I lose external rotation, this all gets soft.
I can see your
my shelf went away.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have anything to bounce. Like if I kick up there, there's nothing. It's like stepping out over a cliff and there's nothing there to hold you.
Yeah,
like
crazy.
So if people are kicking up, you can kick up and kick up, but if you don't have that connection, it's going to be very hard. And then my third tip would just be find a way to lower your center of gravity if you're struggling. Because, and the one way to do that is to bend one knee or bend both knees. And it's not like, again, when you kick up and you bring your legs together and you're straight, it's beautiful. Like that's a beautiful way and we all want to get there. But when you're kicking up and trying to connect your legs right away, there's a lot of room for your body to wobble, right? You're like a tree in a windstorm. You're like, woo.
Yeah.
But if you bend one knee, you're engaging your psoas muscle, which connects your back body to your front body. And you cannot wiggle your core as long as your psoas is engaged, right? It will make you steady. You won't be able to wobble. So that would be my third and final tip. But there's so many, right? But like those three things, like wrists, external rotation, lower your center of gravity. Yeah,
so let's establish that for the record, when you're in the traditional handstand with your legs upright, that's the hardest version.
Oh, it's the hardest. Yeah.
I guess what we talked about earlier, the head
tuck goes away.
Yeah, if you're tucking your head, that's harder.
Oh, and the way so for everyone out there, Alejo will bring his head through, right, and look out towards the horizon, right? So instead of looking down at the hands, which is how you'll want to learn, because if you try to learn tucking your head, I don't know that it's even possible. Speaking of tips,
don't tuck your head.
Maybe number one tip, you have to look down at the ground, because it's equivalent to if I asked you to stand on one leg and then close your eyes. You will not be able to balance on one leg unless you're like extremely good at balance, right? And similarly, if you try to kick up and you don't look between your hands, it's like kicking up blind. It's almost impossible to learn that way. I've never seen anyone do it, so I'm going to go with impossible. But once you're really good, like Alejo here, then you can play with where you're looking. And it's a very advanced practice, and it's great because it opens your shoulders even more if your head's neutral. Mm-hmm. So you get to play with all these fun head variations. It definitely strengthens your grip, right? Mm-hmm. You have to have way more awareness in your hands. So yeah, very advanced.
So the tip is tuck or straddle, lower your center of gravity.
Right.
Do the lowered center of gravity versions, then try to do the straight leg version.
Right. And then don't shift your gaze until you're
Do not shift your gaze. Do not shift your gaze.
until you can do handstands in your sleep and you're just good, and then you can start tucking your head as well.
So as this last quarter in training has been going on, I have felt in the lower back my muscles developing.
Yeah.
So is that because I'm getting straighter? If you go straighter, are you locking in muscles that are smaller and towards the hip and the back area, or what?
On your, one of the things is when you're in a downward dog position and then you lift one leg and then you kick up, you're engaging your quadratus lumborum muscle. You're also which is on the side of
the
your
Joker muscle. That's what it's called.
Is it?
Yeah.
Why?
Because people can't identify where that pain is coming from.
Oh. Interesting.
So you're developing that if you straighten?
Well, yeah. If you're kicking, if you're kicking up with one leg, right? So you can kick up with two legs. You can jump up with two legs, or you can jump up with one leg. But if you are kicking up with one leg, which you typically would do, and you can do two legs too. But like I mostly see you with one leg. You're developing.
I don't know if I'm two legs. I mean, I did pike for a while, but I am more the one-legger.
Yeah. And it's good to do both, you know what I mean? And people do gravitate towards one or another depending on their body type.
Which actually brings me to something that I think once you hit a certain level, people grapple with. It's one of the hardest things that I've seen athletes that are A-type personalities, which is rest and recovery.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us, what's your perceptions on rest and recovery for someone who is, let's say they've started the 18-month journey.
Yeah.
They're day 10, I don't know.
Yes.
Let's say they've already done their bloods and they're like going to combine wisdom of yoga with biohacking, blood testing. How do they make sure they're getting the proper rest and recovery?
I mean, I guess a really great thing that I got out of the blood test was, and I was excited about, was like, oh, your cortisol is actually low, which is your stress hormone. My markers for inflammation were low. And I was like, oh, this is really good, because it lets me know that, okay, well, my sleep must be working, the cold exposure that I'm doing, I do sauna, I try to like wind down at night and wear my blue blockers. I mean, there's all these things I'm doing for recovery that I guess they're working. So yeah, you can use the blood work to tell, like, is my recovery actually working, or am I kidding myself? Because I think it's one thing to feel it, it's another thing to actually see it in your blood. So I think that's important. And yeah, recovery is important. You want to allow your body to heal and to get stronger. So consistency, but not pushing to injury. That's key.
I mean, it's funny because you just described something that was so fun for me to do, which was, so I took the data from my Oura Ring, the sleep score, right? Because sleep is so important. I took the blood tests and I fed it into ChatGPT again to try to figure out how to optimize performance. And the markers that it saw in the report, and I'm trying to think, so maybe an inflammation marker around the heart.
Yeah.
And so it said, hey, make sure you're taking the time for rest and recovery and proper sleep. So the practice of, I have to add more weight and more balance to sleep than many things. I actually took out a day from my workout routine. So I used to do every day.
Yes.
And I took out Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because I found that I was 5 times stronger on Wednesday.
Wow.
5 times stronger. And I put in the EMS. So this will be a plug for Vision Body. It has a unique frequency. So there's a product out there called the Vision Body EMS, and it's a full suit.
Oh, cool.
So it's probably got like 18 pads. And ChatGPT could not say enough wonderful things about it for recovery.
Oh.
So, and I find that the personal experience that I've had in that is that my muscles feel stronger.
Yeah.
So if you put the electric pad and you get it up there, the next day I am stronger. So I don't know if it's activating, stem cells or mitochondria or something in the muscles, which we know is meant for longevity.
Yeah, they say that muscles are the organ of longevity. That's the word on the street.
Now, I do have a question about your inversion practice. Was there a point that you had a breakthrough or a breakthrough moment? Is there such a thing, or is it just on the last day of 18 months you start to feel it? I definitely had a lot of different breakthrough moments, but I think for me, because I learned in a handstand class, learning
speaking of lowering your center of gravity when you're doing downward dog, walking the feet in halfway, not a long down dog, because you're not going to have enough weight in your hands. So you have to walk your feet in halfway. But then you inhale as you bend and exhale, jump up, knees going out kind of wide, you're frogging your legs, you know, you're like jumping up and pulling your knees to your chest, your heels to your butt, kind of like a little tuck, a modified tuck. And for me, that was probably my first breakthrough because it was my first handstand. And I think it was not calling it a full handstand, right? Just like, oh, I'm just having fun. I'm just jumping. I'm just, you know, I would imagine I had like a little trampoline underneath my feet, inhale, bend, exhale, jump up, and just try to get your hips high. And then what happened for me is all of a sudden my hips were high and I'm just holding it. I'm like, oh, I'm actually supporting myself on my hands. And technically my hips are over my shoulders. I'm holding a handstand, but it didn't look like a straight handstand, but it's still a handstand. Anytime you're balancing on your hands, it's a handstand. So that was my first handstand, was just doing those little hops in the center of the room. And that's why I always teach them in my class, because I know that the likelihood of someone falling over from that is slim to none.
It's almost zero.
Almost zero, because the legs are too heavy for them to fall. So it's safe. And the center of gravity is lower, so that their ability to then stack their center of gravity over their support, which is their hands, is pretty high. Like if they just give it enough of a jump. So I think that was a big breakthrough. And then when I was learning how to press to handstand, I was back at Ashtanga. Ashtanga has been woven in and out of my yoga journey the whole time.
And you make it all look so effortless.
Oh my God.
Like the stuff that you do is like insane. Like your straddle, your tuck, your press. I invite everyone actually to follow your Instagram, which is amazing. It has a lot of tips. Angela Kukhahn Yoga.
Yeah.
And that's spelled Kukhahn.
Yes.
Angela, like you would think, yoga. So Angela Kukhahn Yoga.
So that was a breakthrough. Another one was just like with pressing to handstand and this is controversial, but I'm just going to say it because this is the majority of people I've seen learn how to press. They've done this, and it's like, pressing not just your upper back, but the back of your head into a bolster or the wall. I mean, I would recommend a bolster because the wall is kind of hard.
Right.
But then you're start with your feet on the wall, and then you start to lower your legs in a wide straddle and bring them down just as far as you can, and then go back up. So anytime you're not kicking, right, you're pressing.
Right.
So that is a press, and then you just keep,
So a negative. Learn the negative. I haven't even started doing it. I got to start adding that.
Yeah.
Because the theme of this podcast is balancing the time-tested wisdom of yoga against modern technological advancements, biohacking essentially. Is there a thought or a phrase or something that our audience can perhaps pull upon? How do we balance yoga and biohacking technology?
I think of yoga as the wisdom keeper, and I think of biohacking as that nerdy tech friend, and you need both. One teaches you to feel, and one teaches you to measure.
Wow, I love that. Okay, wait. So yoga is the wisdom keeper. Genius, because it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it brings you back to center, presence.
Yeah.
And then the biohacking is your nerdy friend.
Yeah.
Okay, and then yoga teaches you to feel.
Yeah.
And what am I feeling?
I mean, you feeling into your body, feeling into your emotions, feeling into, it's total awareness of your spiritual being, your emotional being, your physical being, right? You want to feel what's going on inside. And I would say that that's one thing that we're very disconnected to in our modern day is really going inside. It's all kind of outside. So yoga brings you back in. But then, biohacking is teaching you to measure. And one of my favorite sayings, and this has been around forever, but it's like,
golly,
what gets measured gets managed.
Yes.
So it's important. You still have to measure. You still have to see where you're at, and then you can manage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the formula for success, right? And if you add sleep in there, because when I measured, I realized I wasn't, and it's hard because you're an A personality. You're just like, you gotta drive harder. It is interesting, the concept of feeling, because in yoga, I feel muscles I never felt. And I feel extension that I never felt. And when I dropped my head, I started to feel a bliss that I never felt. And there was one time that I have experienced this feeling of nirvana a few times, where I realized that it didn't matter if I didn't have rent. It didn't matter if I had a nice car. It didn't matter if I could do a handstand. I somehow in that yoga class felt loved. I felt so deeply and fully loved, and that it didn't matter. And if I could connect to that feeling of being loved by source, I think the creator, the programmer, whatever you call it. For me, it is non-religious, even though, I come from a religious background. That it made every day okay. It made every day great. Because you knew that you could be in a 1-bedroom apartment and you were fully loved. As long as you could get into yoga. Because it's a connection to self, and if you're not connected to self, you then can't connect to the greater universe, the greater consciousness, which once you really realize that like we are all connected, right? But first you got to feel connected to yourself, but then once you feel connected to yourself, then you realize like, oh, we're all connected. And really all is like, when you really feel that connection, it is pure love, That mind blown wisdom keeper to feel connection to love, the wisdom keeper, and that's the way into the wisdom keeper of yoga gets you into feeling that connection of nirvana, which gets me really healthy every day. And then if you measure, that gets your body really healthy every day. So the spirit gets healthy through yoga, and the body gets healthy through measured. Can you put this formula on your Instagram just as one of those quotes, please? Just so that the people who are watching today can go and refer to it, because I do think it is a really important formula. I think it's important, because it's like, feeling into what is, feeling into your body is so important, but also like, measuring. Why wouldn't we use our modern day tools to help us out? What if you want to leave people with what your journey has taught you? What would you say? I would say that something that I always think about, and if you believe in prayer, or if you believe in at the beginning of the practice, a lot of times the teacher will be like, do you want to dedicate your practice to something? And the thing that I always come back to is truth. Like, how closely can I align myself with truth, and not just my own truth and my own values, because like we all know, like we have different values and things, but you can go throughout your life and the world can try to pull you away from those values in many different ways. And how much are you willing to fight against that pressure and stick to what you know is true? But not just that truth, but the greater universal truth of like, not just what's good for me, but what's good for everybody else, what's good for our planet, what's good for humanity, and like, how closely can I align myself with that truth? So that's always my internal prayer and the thing I want to dedicate my life to. So I mean, it's interesting because I want to ask you now, what is your juice? But I want to share that, when you mention truth, because I love the concept of truth, right? And there's a lot of talk in our country about the freedom of speech and misinformation and disinformation. We're not going to get political, but I know that the concept of truth is very important. And I know that there's a lot of conversation in our country about access to truth? You know, and do you have multiple access to truth, or do you have one access to truth, et cetera, et cetera? But I wanted to share that one of the things that I really find powerful when I think about truth is being ultra present. In that I know that when I am mindless, which I'm always confused why we call it mindful, because I've spent my entire life trying to become mindless, right? Have absolutely no mind. And the way I gear into that in handstand class, to your point, is absolute attunement and listening.
Yeah.
And so listening to your music, that's why you always hear me talk about your music.
Yeah, I always appreciate that.
Yeah, and the volume of the music's important, because if I can listen to your cues or the music, I'm super present.
Yeah.
And if I can take that out of the class, and let's say I'm at home and I can just listen to the music and I'm super present, I find that there is no error in nature. You can only be grateful.
Oh, I love that.
Right? Like it's weird, because you could be thinking about your day or work or things like that. But what yoga has taught me, and in your classes, is that if I go home and I can as hard listen to the music and look out the window and be grateful, that is the highest form of meditation that I've experienced.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gratitude. Yeah.
So what is your juice? What is your juice?
When you say about my juice, what do you mean exactly?
What makes life worth living?
Yeah.
What's your juice? What are you after in life?
Yeah. I mean, the pursuit of truth is a big one. But also, connection. I mean, I think that's why we're here. I think connecting, loving, and I think that is through presence. So, I mean, yoga is the perfect pathway to presence. And then you can't love somebody fully if you're not present with them, right? If you really are unable to be present, and that presence requires vulnerability. And again, yoga teaches you to be vulnerable. And I think self-aware, because we all have blocks to intimacy, vulnerability, to love, for whatever reason, maybe it's childhood stuff, who knows why it's there. But if you're not aware that it's there, then you can't pull down those walls and really be vulnerable and present with someone else. So, yeah.
I love that. It's funny, I think everyone should, we did a vlog on intimacy with Coral Osborne. So if you haven't seen it, check it out up here. But to be super intimate and to get the juice off intimacy, you really do have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And you are probably one of the most present people I've ever met. Oh. It's actually intimidating sometimes, because you are so and I've seen this with really fine actresses. So really fine actresses are extremely present, and their eye contact is extremely good, and they're really listening to you, right? And so whenever I come into your class, and we should talk about where people can take your classes, or maybe just to visit your Instagram, because I know that you post on that, so I leave that to you, but I don't want to forget that. You are genuinely one of the most present people. And I know that you're in a relationship.
Yes.
So all the people that are eager to meet you and date you, they have to wish for something else.
Yeah, I got really lucky because I have a very emotionally connected, vulnerable, kind, sweet, funny, wonderful partner, and it's one of the things I'm the most grateful for in my life. It's incredible to find a connection with another human like I have with my boyfriend, and it's one of the things I'm like, sometimes you feel like the universe gave you a gift. You're like, did I earn this with all my hard work? Or does this just, I don't know how he showed up in my life, but I'm incredibly lucky to have him. So
he's incredibly lucky. It's funny. I will take an extra minute here because you've opened up something that I think is very fascinating in society right now, the imposter syndrome, right? And basically it's a new fancy word for insecurity.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that as much as I want to hate the phrase, I like the phrase because it brings you into closer proximity to insecurity,
Yeah.
right? Because it names what the insecurity is. It's that, am I worthy?
Yes.
Right? Am I this person that I wanted to be, or am I as financially successful as I wanted to be, or can I handstand? And so that gap, which we know that Eckhart Tolle talked about, that the pain you feel is the gap between where you want to be and where you are.
Wow. Yeah. Well said.
Right?
Perfect.
And I love that, and I thought Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now was very good. But, it was a summary, like if you've done martial arts or if you've done yoga, it summarizes those concepts. But that one phrase, and the other thing that I thought was really brilliant in that book was like, when you're in this place of mind, right, ask yourself the question, what is wrong now?
Right.
Like in this moment.
Right.
We have food in our belly, we're breathing, there's a roof over our head, and in that moment you can't. So I'm interested, what is your perspective on the imposter syndrome?
I mean, it's something that, I've dealt with too. It's like that little like devil or whatever that like sits on your shoulder and it's like, you could be better, you're not good enough, And, but the reality is like, what's good enough? As if you are really living close to your own truth and you're doing the best you can, you're showing up every day, like trying to be as present with everyone in your world and trying to serve and you know what I mean, be who you were put on this planet to be, then there's no imposter syndrome. You're living your dharma, you're living your path. So you're like, who are you? What's the imposter? But
you can only do the best.
You have to remind yourself of that because I think it'll show up for probably anyone. I mean, maybe someone who's completely enlightened isn't dealing with it, but I think it's common. I think most of us have to fight that.
I'm so glad you said that because doing your best has been the answer for me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like, hey, it's not for me to actually understand the cosmos. Right. And I'll never have the capacity to understand the cosmos.
Yeah.
And the mystery of this simulation life journey.
Yeah.
And so you can only do your best on the day.
Yes.
And so now I try to get my maximum points on the day, so my maximum joy. Yeah. And we've talked about this in the elevator where if you are as authentic as you can be, you are okay to express joy, or your fashion, or you're just able to say it when so many of us don't.
Yeah. I was saying to Alejo, and this was like off camera, but like, well, actually I caught it on camera, actually a little behind the scenes with my camera, but you did a little wave kind of like, hi, like, right?
So embarrassing.
And then you immediately were like, oh no, I did that last time. That was embarrassing. And I said to you, I was like, actually, I think that's one of your best qualities is that you're just, you are vulnerable and open and you express joy freely, you express like affection. And I think a lot of us kind of like pull back and we're just like, we're afraid of expressing vulnerability or like joy or just being kind of like more affectionate just in general, just because I think we're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of getting shut down in some way. And so we hold back and we don't really embody what we're feeling. And I feel like you're one of the people that I'm always like, look how much fun he's having. Because I think when I first met you, I thought, well, maybe he's just having a good day. But then like over the years that I've known you, I'm like, no, he's always having a good day. Like you just are always like, just, shooting off rays of joy and happiness and love in every direction that you're in. So
it's funny that we've stumbled on what probably is the core of yoga, right?
Yeah.
It's kindness or joyfulness.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I didn't think that we'd get to that realization, but I do think that if somebody said to me, what is every day meant to be? I think that shit is going to happen every day.
Oh yeah.
Right. And this is Sadhguru.
It will.
Like this is Sadhguru, right? So like if you can be as maximum points of joy per day, which is what your point is.
Yeah.
You did your best.
Yeah.
Like, so if I chose to have a 6, that I chose that on that day, and tomorrow I can choose a 7, or I can go back to a 6, or I can even go to a 2 if I want.
Yeah.
Like, it's up to me, because nobody cares.
Yeah.
It's up to me to have, the number that I want on the day.
Yeah.
So I'm going to shoot for that 10.
Yeah, because I think if you really are staying focused on gratitude and just being yourself, doing your best, if you focus on those things, it's hard to have a really terrible day,
Yeah.
But I mean, it's easy to get sucked into comparison. It's easy to get there's a lot of pitfalls that can happen. Again, life is going to happen. It's going to throw you curveballs, and you're going to get pulled away from gratitude. You're going to get pulled away from joy sometimes. But if you can come back to what matters, then you're back at it.
And I just realized that we're talking about connection and
Yeah.
intimacy and your boyfriend.
Yeah.
Randox has this incredible product.
Oh, nice.
Which is around play. Okay. Randox has created this product called the Play Safe Kit.
I like it.
Because the concept here is that life is play.
Yes.
And get out there and play.
Yes.
Just play safe.
Yes.
And so they have this brilliant 9 STD test.
Nice.
And if you come into the clinic, it's only $99.
Nice.
If you send away for the at-home test, it's $149. So life is play safe, play on, people. And, we're just putting out the product. So yeah, we'll get your nutrition done with the baseline. And so if you're not joyful from yoga, do the test, take some vitamin D, and fix your liver and your thyroid.
Yeah.
And brilliant. And you also, I know that we mentioned a few of your yoga practitioners where people can come and practice with you. Was there yoga?
Yogis Anonymous
Okay.
as well as one of the places that, if you're not in LA and you can't practice with me on my Zooms because the times don't work, let's say, I have hundreds of classes up on a site called Yogis Anonymous. And, you're going to see, if you go back into the archives, there's young Angela from 2012 all the way up to I recorded with them yesterday. So you'll see all the versions of Angela throughout the years. But it's great because there's something for everything. There's ones for sleep. There's ones for mobility. There's ones for just handstands or just, breaking down certain poses. So there's something there for everybody. And even if you get on there and I'm not your cup of tea, there's amazing teachers that you can learn from on there. So it's a great site.
Oh, super sweet, super generous. Is there any classes that you want to plug, or should people go to your Instagram and from there they will know where to go?
I mean, they can definitely, if you go to my Instagram and you click the link in my bio, it's going to have connection to my Zoom, all my online classes that people can take. But it also, I have in my bio written, my classes. I teach right now at 2 studios in LA, Satori Yoga, which is West LA.
And I happen to know Layla, and I introduced you to Layla.
Ashby and Layla are just, speaking of joy, you walk through the door and you're hit with just love and joy and happiness. Yay. And you're just I love this place. I feel so at home. So yeah, wonderful studio. And then Shefa Yoga in Venice, which is also amazing. And Leah, the owner, talk about someone who's living in a place of truth and gratitude and joy. And she's one of the most amazing bosses I've ever had. She's a yogi and she used to be an accountant. So she's the business and the yoga
amazing.
Side, she's understands it all. And people that don't know, that's a unicorn. If you are in the yoga world and you have both of those skill sets, that almost never happens, especially as a boss. So I absolutely love working for her. She's incredible, and I love what she's done with that space.
I have to second your motion on Leah. Leah, you're amazing. You've created just such a great environment there. Yeah. And really, it's funny because community, we didn't talk about community, but Shefa Yoga
they're so good.
Aspires towards community. I do think that it is, incumbent upon our yoga teachers to remember that, the practice is for kindness in the
Yeah.
world. So you guys have a lot of influence on. So that was Shefa Yoga, Satori Yoga. I am actually going to mention that you did give me a recommendation as well. And I know that you sometimes see Coach Bachman.
Yeah, Coach Bachman's amazing.
Really great class, so the secondary class. And I think that it's in the spirit of being loving and generous. We want to support those who are really out there and teaching well.
Yes, and Coach Bachman, also in LA, right on Main Street, has his own little studio. Hilarious, by the way.
And amazingly hilarious.
Amazing, hilarious. You'll laugh
Love him.
so
He's such a
hard and
beautiful
work
soul.
so hard at the same
So
time.
good.
Yeah, he's great.
And so they can find him on Instagram.
Find him on Instagram, and then if you want to, I think in one of his highlights, it's like My Studio, and then you just click on that, and then there's a link to the classes.
Brilliant. I can't believe we got to that place. That's that final step in the journey of yoga, which is joy, presence, connection.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today, Angela. And thank you, audience, for this incredible meandering through health, wellness, biohacking. And so we're going to close today. Angela Kukhahn, thank you for joining us on the Health Geniuses podcast. Again, shout outs to Angela Kukhahn Yoga, so you can find her on Instagram. You can also check her out at Satori Yoga. You can check her out at Shefa Yoga, and Leah for being such an incredible boss and community leader. And also Coach Bachman, who I've taken a class from thanks to Angela's recommendation. And Angela, I know, will be there. So thank you for joining us today, and I hope that you find our Randox Baseline protocol useful. And for those of you out there who are undertaking this life of play, don't forget to play safe, and with the Randox Play Safe Kit. Got all the product placements in there as well. Thanks, everyone. Take care.